The story begins with Kim Hyun-soo, who is a college student who studies deliberately there. He has his own circle of friends who often mock him, as he has never slept with any girl yet in his life. That night, Jin Hyun-soo has plans with his friends to go to a pool party, so he got permission from his parents to do the group study. As he has no money for transport, he secretly takes the keys to his father's taxi and decides to take the taxi to reach the destination. But before he starts driving, he turns off the dash camera recording so that his father cannot find out that Hyun-soo took his taxi at night without permission. He starts driving and reaches in the urban area where the taxi roof shows that it can carry passengers. As a result, a female passenger gets in the car while Hyun-soo is waiting for a red signal. Kim Hyun-soo tries to tell the girl that the taxi is not open for the ride, but the girl is persistent in showing that it is open, so Hyun-soo has to leave her for the destination. The girl's name is Hong Guk-hwa, and she is really pretty, which flusters Hyun-soo a bit, and he decides to drop off her first and then go to his party. Hong Guk-hwa asks him to go to the Han River as if she wants to escape from her life. Hyun-soo first goes to a filling station to get some gasoline, and there he stops the girl from smoking in his car. But just one glare from the girl is enough to freeze Hyun-soo. She even makes him buy her new cigarettes and drinks. There is another man at the filling station who tries to approach the girl in the car, but Hyun-soo comes just then, so that man backs off. After that, Kim Hyun-soo cancels his plan to go to the pool party and decides to spend more time with that girl. He walks along the Han River with this woman, and they steal ice cream from a street vendor just to have fun. They spend some time at the Han River and then finally return to the girl's house to stay. Before entering the house, Kim Hyun-soo accidentally bumps into the rear end of the car in front of him, but the owner doesn't pursue the matter and lets him go, saying that it's not a big deal. Then, the two enter the house, and the girl says that she was living in China because her mother was sick 3 years ago. Now her mother has passed away, and she has returned back here. Also, a friend used to live with her in that house, but she had a quarrel before, and they no longer had contact with each other. Therefore, in such a large house, she lives alone. Then, the two drink alcohol, take some narcotics, and play knife-stabbing games. Though Kim Hyun-soo is resistant to taking drugs and playing such dangerous games, the girl makes him do all these things. During this, Kim Hyun-soo accidentally stabs the woman's hand, but it seems to arouse her lust as she starts kissing after that. Though Hyun-soo was trying to stop the bleeding from her hand, she takes him upstairs to her bedroom, and they share the most intimate moments of Kim Hyun-soo's life. After a night of passion, Kim Hyun-soo wakes up on the sofa naked. He dresses to leave as it is very late for him, but when he goes in to say bye to the woman, he finds that she is lying in a pool of blood. She has been killed brutally in her own bed. In a panic, Kim Hyun-soo runs away from the house, but because of his nervousness, he forgets to take the car key. When he turns back, he finds that the door is locked now. So, in a hurry, he breaks the glass and opens the door with one hand. After entering the house for his keys, he sees the knife from the game on the table. Thinking that the knife could be evidence against him, he takes the knife to throw it away on the road. After that, he cleans the table by dropping the alcohol on it. This is also his attempt to wipe off the evidence against him, but he is too naive at this job. Soon after, he takes his taxi to leave. This behavior happens to be seen by the neighbor next door. While on the road, Kim Hyun-soo accidentally runs into a checkpoint due to his anxiousness. There, a police officer approaches him, and seeing his nervousness, she takes his alcohol test. The police officer thinks that he has been driving the car after drinking alcohol, but she can't confirm it as the alcohol meter's battery is dead. Suddenly, she hears fellow police report a case of private intrusion into a house, and as she is near the location of that house, she is asked to go and have a look. As Hyun-soo is still in between them, the police take him with them, only to realize that it is the house from which he has just escaped. At the crime scene, the neighbor who saw Hyun-soo earlier escaping the house tells the police everything about the intruder. When the police check the house, they find the dead body of Miss Hong. Soon, the police vehicles reach the area. According to the police investigation, the case was reported at 4 a.m. The body shows it was killed at 2 a.m. The victim is 25 years old with 12 to 13 stab wounds. The murder weapon is a 15 centimeters fruit knife, and nothing is left at the scene. There are no fingerprints, indicating the perpetrator is wearing gloves. They think that the method is quite cruel, and it may be a premeditated crime. Suddenly, the police chief, Park Sang-beom, notices Hyun-soo in the police vehicle and orders his subordinates to take him to the police station for the alcohol test. While driving towards the police station, The police officers talk about the murder in front of Hyun-soo, so he asks them if the girl is dead, to which the police officers confirm that the girl is dead after having 13 stab wounds. Back at the crime scene, the man is present whose car was hit by the taxi of Kim Hyun-soo. He tells the police about the young, handsome boy who came with the girl in the house. At the police station, Kim Hyun-soo tries multiple times to flee from there, but he stops every time he sees someone coming from the outdoors who can recognize his identity. After some time, when the team leader returns to the police station, he finds Kim Hyun-soo wide-eyed and asks his subordinates to check if he is holding drugs. There, he also meets the witness, an elderly man who says that the intruder is much like the boy standing in front of them. Also, the witness says that the murderer drove away by taxi. This makes the police suspicious of Kim Hyun-soo. When they search for him, they find a fruit knife in his jacket. So, he is arrested on the spot as a suspect. Kim Hyun-soo continues saying that he is not the murderer and doesn't remember anything, but the police chief doesn't believe him. When his clothes are taken off, police notice that he has a lot of blood and nail marks on his body, so now there is strong evidence against him, so he is locked up there. After some time, an attorney named Shin Jun-han happens to come there to meet one of his clients, but he sees the innocent face of Hyun-soo there and cannot resist himself in asking about the matter of helpless Kim Hyun-soo. After listening to his story, Shin Jun-han investigates the incident and decides to become Kim Hyun-soo's defense lawyer. Shin Jun-han explains to Kim Hyun-soo that from now on, they would call the girl's murder the day that night, and he strains on mentioning that event to anyone again, even the police or his own parents. He says that the police are also battling the story and contemplating things as they understand. During this period, Shin Jun-han claims that they will also make up their story, and the judge chooses the most convincing one. This is the trial. As long as Kim Hyun-soo stays silent, Shin Jun-han can first learn what story the police are pushing and then come up with a better one in favor of Kim Hyun-soo. At the crime scene, the team leader, Park Sang-bum, rushes to get more evidence. He started at the kitchen table, where Kim Hyun-soo tried to wipe off the evidence. Along the stairs, he sees bloody handprints on the walls and stains on the handrails. Also, broken vases litter the stairwell. Park Sang-bum sees Kim Hyun-soo's inhaler present at the crime scene and secretly takes it with him. Meanwhile, at the police station, the witnesses record their statements. These witnesses include the man whose car was hit by Hyun-soo's car, the police officer who arrested Kim Hyun-soo on the road for drinking and driving, and the police officers who took Hyun-soo to the police station. After investigating, they contacted the victim's family, which included only his stepfather who was not even interested in his daughter as he was not ready to talk to her. When the police tell him that they want him for the identification of the dead body, then he comes to the police station. All other relatives moved out of the house after Miss Hong's mother passed away from cancer. He is only a stepfather with no blood relation. At the same time, Kim Hyun-soo's parents visit the police station too. Team leader Park Sang-bum lets them sit in the interrogation room together with Kim Hyun-soo, and he listens to their conversation secretly. Kim Hyun-soo forgets his promise to Shin Jun-han not to reveal anything to anyone and opens his mouth in front of his family, revealing all the small details about the incident. Team leader Park Sang-bum listens to it all. During the conversation, Shin Jun-han returns to the police station after handling a lawsuit. He hears that Kim Hyun-soo was in the interrogation room and rushes to confront Park Sang-bum. Then, he again tries to make Kim Hyun-soo understand how difficult it would have been for him if he had continued revealing the details of the case so easily to anyone. On the other hand, team leader Park Sang-bum brings the case to the chief of the police, who implies that almost all the evidence points to a conviction but still they need a confession from the suspect which will make their work easier. He suggests to Park Sang-bum that this case will boost opportunities, and it must be handled properly. At night, Park Sang-bum approaches Kim Hyun-soo and gives him the inhaler that he took from the crime scene. It is a good gesture as a human but a very wrong one as a police officer. Officer Park is doing this to talk to Kim Hyun-soo about the case and somehow convince him over the confession. However, Kim Hyun-soo hesitantly succeeds in avoiding talking to the police officer. Meanwhile, a reporter named Kang Do-jun seizes the chance to cover the case, exposing all the details, which indirectly labels Kim Hyun-soo as a suspect. The next day, before heading to custody court, Park Sang-bum meets with the prosecutor and Tae-hee to report the full case. Only Kim Hyun-soo, an ordinary college student with no prior record, makes him hesitate about the murder. Prosecutor and Tae-hee is going to prove Kim Hyun-soo guilty in court. After that, Park Sang-bum gives Kim Hyun-soo a shirt to wear, though it makes the look of innocent Hyun-soo into a rogue street boy. Shin Jung-han also steps in to greet them and shows his dislike for the shirt. After a while in court, tensions flare between the prosecutor and the defendant's attorney, and Tae-hee argues that there's overwhelming evidence pointing to this person as a suspect, and she demands to detain Kim Hyun-soo until further investigation, but Shin Jung-han strains on the innocent previous record of Kim Hyun-soo as a college student to avoid detention. The final trial resulted in Kim Hyun-soo being detained in court. Here, we learn that the truth is a battle of stories, and whoever controls the narrative wins the trial. In court, it's not just the facts that matter. Kim Hyun-soo, who is sentenced to custody, is like a white rabbit strayed into the jungle. Soon, he is transported to the prison, though he doesn't know all the eyebrows and corners of the prison. The codename 7927 can't imagine what kind of life he will lead next. After entering the detention center, Kim Hyun-soo lived in room 8. There is a patient with panic attacks at any time who is also Kim Hyun-soo's cellmate, and another cellmate exudes a literary atmosphere. He explains all the ecology to Kim Hyun-soo. There is a white tiger gang from Busan in the detention center. They used to beat the other prisoners without any reason, just to practice their monopoly inside the center. Another underworld don whom they call Lion from the Northern Guard is also there. His name is Do Ji-tae, and he is a drug trafficker inside the prison. When Do Ji-tae is in medical care for injections, it turns out that he has colluded with the medical staff privately and asked her to help transport a small amount of drugs for his own use. This time, the medical staff helped him for the last time. Soon, she will be transferred to the Western Detention Center, so she will not be able to help Do Ji-tae in the future. Back to Kim Hyun-soo, who gets some Ventolin in his inhaler for his asthma from the medical officer and then returns to his room. There the bully prisoner from the White Tiger gang comes and teases Kim Hyun-soo with the sharp blade containing toothbrush. Fortunately, Do Ji-tae is watching this scene, who whistles and signals the bullies to go away. So Kim Hyun-soo is saved this time. Outside the prison, the news reports about the female homicide case. After some time, Shin Chung-han came to the Seoul prosecutor's office to inquire about the news. The prosecutor tells him that they have decided to prosecute as soon as possible because the police believe that there is a murderer and that there is a deceased, and there are many pieces of evidence pointing to Kim Hyun-soo. However, the fast operation puzzles Shin Jung-han. He highlights the point that there is no motive for the murder, but no one listens to him, neither the prosecutor nor the police. As for how to conduct investigations, the police believe that as long as an inductive confession is added, drug abuse, force, and assault crimes will be more perfect to sentence the suspect. After that, Shin Jung-han goes to the house of Kim Hyun-soo's parents and discusses his fees. He wants to charge $70,000 for the case, but the parents of Kim Hyun-soo are not wealthy, so Shin Jung-han decreases the amount to $50,000, saying that he has to make a living in the end. However, the parents of Kim Hyun-soo took some time for him to think about it. Later, Shin Jung-han comes back to the police station to review the contents of the police investigation. There, the prosecutor, and Tae-hee, believes that the evidence is conclusive, and they are sure that Kim Hyun-soo was the one who murdered the lady. Shin Jung-han tries to put forward the view that it is possible that the deceased was killed by negligence. However, and Tae-hee says that the deceased was stabbed 13 times, so it can't be done in negligence. To this, Shin Jung-han says that it is because of this that he believes Kim Hyun-soo is not the murderer, as he has no motive to stab someone so brutally. He says that the police have made Kim Hyun-soo a suspect only by relying on circumstantial evidence. The following day, the prosecutor, and Tae-hee, held a press conference in which she announced Kim Hyun-soo as the prime suspect in the murder case in the city. She even publicizes the picture of Kim Hyun-soo on the television, which Kim Hyun-soo also sees in the prison and becomes anxious. He runs and calls Shin Chung-han to address the matter, but Shin Chung-han stops him from saying anything, as these calls from the prison are always recorded. The attorney assures the young boy that he will come to the prison soon to talk to him. After that, Shin Chung-han records his statement to a news channel as the attorney of Kim Hyun-soo. He says that Kim Hyun-soo is innocent and he is facing all this just on the basis of circumstantial evidences. Then Shin Jung-han runs to the prison to help Kim Hyun-soo take care of everything in the detention center. As the case has caught the attention of the whole public, it has become the talk of the town. A barrister, Park Mi-kyung, has also seen the news and thinks to take up this case. She has her own law firm and many attorneys work under her. She wants to use this case for the marketing of her law firm, so she appoints her new assistant Seo Soo-jin to arrange a meeting with the parents of Kim Hyun-soo. After that, when this meeting happens, Park Mi-kyung convinces the parents of Kim Hyun-soo to give the case to her by saying that she will do this for free. Park Mi-kyung states that she will unconditionally help Kim Hyun-soo in the lawsuit, privately, just to increase her popularity. Her law firm is already a renowned one with a whole team of attorneys, so the parents don't have any issues regarding this. Moreover, they happily handed over the case to her. At the prison, Kim Hyun-soo is caught by a group of prisoners who put a blind cloth on his head and then take him to a dark room. There, the poor boy is hanged by a rope and is beaten badly by all the prisoners. Though a guard is witnessing this scene, he doesn't do anything because it's customary at the prison to intimidate any newcomer at that place. It helps the already present residents to have a sense of superiority over the others. Meanwhile, Shin Jung-han investigates the crime scene again and takes pictures of the things present there. He then buys some clothes and other stuff for Kim Hyun-soo and visits him in the prison. He gives that stuff to Hyun-soo there and also gives him some cards that have some money to buy things in the prison. There, Kim Hyun-soo gives the bad news to his ex-attorney that his parents have signed the case with barrister Park Mi-kyung. Though Kim Hyun-soo didn't want this, he could not say anything before his parents made the decision. After hearing all this, Shin Jung-han still gives that stuff to Kim Hyun-soo, which he bought for him, showing a very kind gesture. This incident makes Shin Jung-han think that his case is being robbed, and it also makes him more worried about Kim Hyun-soo's case. When Kim Hyun-soo returns to his cell, he is called by Do Ji-tae to a secret place where some prisoners are kneeling in front of him. One of those prisoners supplied the drugs in the detention center, knowing that this business was completely owned by Do Ji-tae and no one could traffic drugs inside instead of him. Also, Do Ji-tae knows that Kim Hyun-soo has seen that person with the drugs, and that's why he is there to identify the drug trafficker among all the captives. However, Kim Hyun-soo continues saying that he has not seen anyone because he knows that the person would die here if he named him. Do Ji-tae asks Kim Hyun-soo to look at them again and identify the culprit, but Kim Hyun-soo says that that person is not available there. Later at night, Kim Hyun-soo is already in trouble due to his circumstances in prison and can't sleep in his cell. Suddenly, he sees that one of his cellmates has committed the unthinkable. He was already an anxious patient and could not bear the tough circumstances of the detention center. Seeing all this, Kim Hyun-soo also gets a panic attack, and he starts running from the prison. The guards think that he wants to escape from the center, so they capture him and beat him a lot. After that, he is thrown into the seclusion cell for some time. On the other hand, prosecutor in Tae-hee is discussing the case with team leader Park Sang-beom, who thinks that it will take half a month for the identification to be carried out. That's why he wants to postpone the investigation time. For this, prosecutor in Tae-hee is going to conduct a polygraph on Kim Hyun, and she has a trick to make the suspect anxious and get the result of her own choice. And if Kim Hyun-soo refuses the polygraph, it will be beneficial to the trial against him. She gives the whole plan to Park Sang-beom. The next morning, Tae-hee applied for a polygraph for Kim Hyun-soo's case. As evidence, Tae-hee asks Park Sang-beom to persuade Kim Hyun-soo to perform a polygraph. When Kim Hyun-soo comes to the interrogation room, Tae-hee first verbally intimidates him and states that she will prosecute him for violence and homicide. Still, Kim Hyun-soo denies that he remembers anything. This statement is more favorable for the prosecutor than the statement that Kim Hyun-soo made earlier that he didn't kill anyone. Park Sang-beom also informs Shin Jung-han about the polygraph test, which makes him worried. He tells Park Sang-beom that he is no longer the attorney of Kim Hyun-soo, but he still uses the connection of his ex-wife, who is a forensic doctor at the center, and Shin Jung-han reaches the location where the test is going to be conducted. On the other hand, Park Mi-kyung is also informed about the test and sends her assistant to attend it for the time being, but she is completely naive. Prior to the polygraph test, Park Sang-beom deliberately asks him to see Ms. Hong-gukwa's body in the morgue, causing Kim Hyun-soo's health to fluctuate, and does not allow him to take any medications related to his asthma too, saying that it's not permissible to take any medication before the test. Seo Soo-jin tries to convince Kim Hyun-soo that he should not take this test, but Kim Hyun-soo doesn't listen to her. Although the polygraph does not have any legal benefits, Kim Hyun-soo agrees to claim his innocence. During the polygraph test, too many questions are asked about the content of the case, which makes the condition of Kim Hyun-soo worse. Also, his inhaler is placed in front of him, and he is not allowed to inhale it until the test concludes. This is also another factor in worsening her condition. Shin Jung-han has also come to the scene and discovers that this is a scam and refuses to continue the polygraph test on the spot. He guides Seo Soo-jin to repeat what he says exactly and cancels this test. Being Kim Hyun-soo's attorney, Shin Jung-han claims that no one is allowed to go through this test, which requires some kind of medication. When Kim Hyun-soo returns to the prison, he is again bullied by Park Do-sik. This time, Do-ji-tae takes Kim Hyun-soo to his room and gives him a book to read. He wants Kim Hyun-soo to learn how to survive in the prison. The following day, when there is the next hearing of the trial of Kim Hyun-soo, Do-ji-tae gives him a spectacle to wear while going outside. Kim Hyun-soo does the same as Do-ji-tae asked. On the day of Hong Guk-hwa's cremation, Shin Jung-han also comes to the ceremonial venue to observe all the people who come to participate in the sacrifice. He remembers that Hong Guk-hwa had some medicines in the room. From her Instagram, he also finds that Hong Guk-hwa has been visiting the rehabilitation center in the previous days. When he comes to the clinic, Shin Jung-han asks the doctor about prescribing fentanyl to Hong Guk-hwa, which is a prescriptive drug and a narcotic. These types of drug prescriptions are signed for up to 3 years. The doctor accepts that he has been prescribing these drugs to Hong Guk-hwa even after these drugs were included in the national drug blacklist. This thing makes the doctor guilty, but Shin Jung-han uses this to blackmail the doctor into giving him the previous 3 years' medical records of Hong Guk-hwa. The doctor also learns that there is a roommate of Hong Guk-hwa who is still in touch with the rehabilitation center. In the next hearing, Park Mi-kyung tries to get bail for Kim Hyun-soo, saying that he is being bullied at the detention center and, as he is just a normal college student, he can't bear the torture of other prisoners. Park Mi-kyung even makes Kim Hyun-soo show his bruises and injuries, but prosecutor In Tae-hee argues that these bruises and injuries are due to the punishment of the guards, which they gave Kim Hyun-soo when he tried to flee from the center. Though Kim Hyun-soo was not fleeing, he was just having a panic attack, but there is no such thing that can prove this. Also, Park Mi-kyung becomes angry at Kim Hyun-soo for hiding such information from her. In the end, the judge didn't allow any bail for the suspect, and Kim Hyun-soo still had to stay in the detention center. Later, Shin Jung-han sells Hong Guk-hwa's 3-year medical records to Park Mi-kyung's assistant, Seo So-jin, for $100,000. Back in prison, Kim Hyun-soo is bullied by Park Do-sik again. This time, Park Do-sik gives a cut at the arm of Kim Hyun-soo, which later on is stitched by Do-ji-tae in his room. Meanwhile, Seo So-jin relays the medical records of Hong Guk-hwa to Park Mi-kyung, who knows that such information would be very beneficial for her in the case. After getting the information, Park Mi-kyung immediately meets with Tae-hee to explain the case. Park Mi-kyung claims that Kim Hyun-soo neither pleads guilty nor has direct evidence against him or even a motive for killing the young girl that night. Even the antipsychotic drugs were provided to him by the victim. They argue that in the Mapo women's case in 2012 and the Lei Taiyuan sauna incident in 2017, both were sentenced to death by negligence and given 8 years in prison. Why is Kim Hyun-soo sentenced to life imprisonment? The two have enough time to negotiate the possible sentence of Kim Hyun-soo, and in the end, they both agree to imprisonment for several years. The condition is that Kim Hyun-soo pleads guilty to his crime, and then he will be sentenced to 10 years for negligent death. This condition doesn't feel good, as Kim Hyun-soo said from the start that he did nothing wrong, so why should he go for 8 years in prison? However, in penalty transactions, such illegal deals are only proposed if no key evidence is found or no guilty plea is made. If the prosecution refuses, the prosecutor usually demands heavier penalties. Park Mi-kyung tells the whole scenario to the defendant and strongly recommends that Kim Hyun-soo should accept these conditions. She claims that Kim Hyun-soo would get out of the prison within 2 to 3 years if he showed a model behavior inside the detention center. Later, Shin Jung-han also came to visit Kim Hyun-soo and gave his opinion on this matter. He doesn't want Kim Hyun-soo to settle so easily for the crime which he didn't do, as it will be the end of his life then. In the end, Kim Hyun-soo listens to Shin Jung-han's suggestion and states in the court that he does not plead guilty. This shocks prosecutor In Tae-hee and also angers Park Mi-kyung, as it's like an insult for her. Suddenly, Park Mi-kyung refuses to defend Kim Hyun-soo anymore and hands the case over to Seo So-jin. Back at the prison, Park Do-sik asks Kim Hyun-soo to get him 3 packs of cigarettes somehow. Kim Hyun-soo requests for the cigarettes from Do-ji-tae and succeeds in getting 2 packs. But when Kim Hyun-soo meets with Park Do-sik with 2 cigarette packs instead of 3, the bully gets angry at him and beats him a lot. The following day, Kim Hyun-soo gets more money from his parents and buys another cigarette pack for Park Do-sik. But it's vain, as Park Do-sik again bullies the innocent young boy and even burns his hand mercilessly. Fortunately, Do-ji-tae reaches there on time and saves Kim Hyun-soo. He then takes the young boy to the infirmary and gets him treated. After that, Do Ji-tae captures Park Do-sik to punish him for his deeds. In front of Kim Hyun-soo, Do Ji-tae burns Park Do-sik's hand with boiling water. He also threatens him not to tease Kim Hyun-soo again. Outside the prison, Seo Soo-jin is completely naive and still wants to work on the case of Kim Hyun-soo, so she comes to work with Shin Jung-han in defense. She wants to reopen the case of Kim Hyun-soo in the jury trial and let the citizens participate in it. The next day, Shin Jung-han visits Kim Hyun-soo and lets him know his further plans for the case. However, it would take about 3 to 4 months to conclude the jury trial, and for that period of time, Kim Hyun-soo would have to stay in the detention center. When Do Ji-tae comes up to hear all this scene, he again advises Kim Hyun-soo to learn how to survive in the prison. Do Ji-tae controls the detention center with one hand and helps Kim Hyun-soo solve troubles in the prison and also in his life outside. Do Ji-tae tells Kim Hyun-soo everything he knows about his family. Kim Hyun-soo's sister is transferred to another school because of her involvement in a violent school case, and his father's taxi is still detained at the National Search Division. Later that day, Do Ji-tae also asks for a favor from Kim Hyun-soo in return for all the things Do Ji-tae has done for him. Kim Hyun-soo is first given a painkiller, and then his shoulder is dislocated. After that, he is transported by the detention center authorities to the hospital to get his shoulder fixed. Soon, Kim Hyun-soo gets a bandage around his shoulder and returns to the detention center. When he goes into the cell of Do Ji-tae, he takes off the bandage on Kim Hyun-soo's shoulder and sends him back, saying that his work is done here. Later at night, Do Ji-tae and his assistant boil that bandage in hot water, and we learn that the bandage was soaked in the drugs. Now, these drugs are accumulated together back, and Do Ji-tae snuffs the drug inside him later on. Meanwhile, Shin Jung-han again contacts his ex-wife and asks her a favor. He takes her to the crime scene and wants her to examine it in order to get some clues out of it which could help in the case. On the other hand, Park Sang-beom is mapping the route of Kim Hyun-soo which he took at that night. He checks all the CCTV cameras of that route and accumulates more evidences. So, the date for the jury trial hearing is set, and Shin Jung-han makes Kim Hyun-soo's dress more presentable in court. At first, the prosecutor gives her arguments, saying that a young lady was brutally killed by stabbing her 13 times. Also, there are 117 pieces of evidence against suspect Kim Hyun-soo. This time, she demands life imprisonment for Kim Hyun-soo because she is angry at him for ruining the deal with Park Mi-kyung earlier, where he refused to plead guilty in front of the court. After that, Shin Jung-han stands up and shows the pictures of Kim Hyun-soo from his college life. He says that Kim Hyun-soo has a very clean previous record and also doesn't have a motive to kill Hong Guk-hwa. He is just being dragged into being the murderer with the circumstantial evidence. After that, a doctor is called as the witness who explains the nature of the stab wounds found on the dead body. There are 13 stab wounds on the body and also a minor cut on the hand of Kim Hyun-soo, which is thought to be due to the collision of the knife with the spine, which caused the spill of the knife from his hand. But Shin Jung-han proves all these statements wrong, as the minor cut on the hand of Kim Hyun-soo was due to the knife game that he played with the victim earlier. Also, he shows a document proving Hyun-soo was a lefty while all the stab wounds were the actions of a right-handed person. After that, the police officer called as a witness who arrested Kim Hyun-soo that night. She tells the court that Kim Hyun-soo was in a panic state and was driving rashly when she first saw him, but she is also guilty of not checking the alcohol status of Hyun-soo immediately. Also, she took a detour from her original route to the crime scene while transporting Kim Hyun-soo to the police station. Then, the officers called witnesses, from whom Hyun-soo asked if the girl was dead. The prosecutor is taking this sentence of Kim Hyun-soo as a confirmation of his crime, but Hyun-soo was actually worried about the victim and wanted to know if somehow she lived. When the footage of the dash cam of the car of these police officers is played on the screen, the court leans that, actually, these police officers themselves took the case very casually. They even counted the stab wounds as 13 based on the number of the lottery ticket. This proves another blunder from the police side. Then, the principal of the old college where Kim Hyun-soo studied once is called a witness. He tells the court that Kim Hyun-soo was expelled from his college due to fighting with a boy at the campus. But when Seo Soo-jin digs deeper into the case, asking further questions from Kim Hyun-soo about the incident, we learn that a classmate made fun of Kim Hyun-soo's father for being a taxi driver working for a very low wage. Kim Hyun-soo could not tell the administration about this bullying because he didn't want to let his father hear these arguments, so he fought with the boy himself. Later, Shin Jung-han shows a picture of some fruits on the side table of the bed in Hong Guk-hwa's room. He asks Kim Hyun-soo if he remembers the knife present with these fruits, as it was not found in the evidence. The only knife which was found was with Kim Hyun-soo in his jacket. Shin Jung-han also asks about the roommate of Hong Guk-hwa and the drugs she was taking, but Kim Hyun-soo doesn't know anything about all this. Also, he doesn't remember anything from that night due to the effect of drugs on his mind. Later we see Shin Jung-han privately investigating Yoon Hyo-jeon's affairs, who was the roommate of Hong Guk-hwa. She had been living with Hong Guk-hwa, but they both had a quarrel just a week after the death of Hong Guk-hwa. That's why they had not seen each other for some time and were not living together. Now, Yoon Hyo-jeon has turned her hair into a completely different look, which can be a sign that she wants to hide her previous identity. From the conversation with Yoon Hyo-jeon, Shin Jung-han traces a man named Ji-jeon, who seems to be a supplier of drugs for the girls. Through a secret audio recording, he discovers that Ji-jeon had a quarrel with Yoon Hyo-jeon a week before Hong Guk-hwa's death. They both are in a relationship, but the girl has some doubts about Ji-jeon as he slept with Hong Guk-hwa once. That's why they had been quarreling. All three of them have emotional entanglements, which could be the reason for killing Hong Guk-hwa. But still, there is no evidence that could save Kim Hyun-soo, and he claims that he is not the killer. Shin Jung-han then asked Seo Soo-jin to collect all the CCTV footage of Kim Hyun-soo's route that night. Maybe this could help them in the case. Meanwhile, at the detention center, a police officer comes up to conduct a complete search for the cells of Kim Hyun-soo and Do Ji-tae as he has learned about the drug trafficking that Do Ji-tae did using Kim Hyun-soo. He knows that the bandage used for Kim Hyun-soo's shoulder was soaked in the drugs. That's why he tries to intimidate Do Ji-tae. Actually, he also wants a deal with Do Ji-tae and opens up for some money, but Do Ji-tae has better connections than him. He makes a call from his superiors, which compels the police officer to leave Do Ji-tae untouched. At the same time, one agent was interrogating Kim Hyun-soo and trying to get a statement against Do Ji-tae, but Kim Hyun-soo stayed firm and didn't reveal anything. Later, this gesture is liked by Do Ji-tae as he was not thinking Kim Hyun-soo so tight-lipped. As a gift, Do Ji-tae gives him a cell phone and asks him to contact his family if he wants. Outside, Shin Jung-han checks the driving monitor and finds that when Kim Hyun-soo and Hong Guk-hwa were at the gas station, they were followed by men all the way. That person is Lee Jae-hao, who is a delivery man and actually has a history of force assault. Also, he followed Hong Guk-hwa and Kim Hyun-soo to the Han River. When Shin Jung-han and Seo Soo-jin go to the delivery company to interrogate this man, they come to know that he has already left the job. In fact, he was struck off from the job due to many complaints, including one from Hong Guk-hwa when he went there for a delivery. His true motive was not a delivery job but to find workers for his other dirty business. After that, Shin Jung-han somehow gets to the current location of Lee Jae-hao and reaches there to ask some questions from him. But the man behaves very badly with the attorney and even tries to kill him by throwing an axe at Shin Jung-han. Luckily, Shin Jung-han dodges the attack in time and saves his life. In the meantime, a police officer reaches out to whom the attorney has already given a tip. The police officer there arrests Lee Jae-hao. The next day, during the trial, Kim Hyun-soo cannot listen to Park Sang-bum's confession as he is submerged in his own thoughts. Kim Hyun-soo even started yelling in court that he was not guilty and that he was being falsely convicted. Seeing this as an opportunity, he is persuaded by Tae-hee to go to the witness stand and be questioned on stage. Kim Hyun-soo agrees even though Seo Soo-jin was asking him if it was not the right decision to see his mental health. In the witness box, the sharp questions during the process make Kim Hyun-soo unable to stand up on his own point of view. According to prosecutor Tae-hee Kim Hyun-soo, he didn't want to protect himself from missing the opportunity to sleep with a beautiful young girl. That's why he went with her to her home and then even took drugs and alcohol. Though all these things are true, the way prosecutor Tae-hee presents these facts makes Kim Hyun-soo a culprit in the case. Also, there were several chances for Kim Hyun-soo to call the police that night, but he didn't do so even when he was in the police station along with the weapon of murder. It even seems like Tae-hee wants to make Kim Hyun-soo blurt out the crime he has not committed. Kim Hyun-soo is questioned to the point where he cannot refute, so he sheds tears in panic and is unable to face the repeated inquiries further. This is also a negative point against him again. After the trial, Seo Soo-jin packs her stuff and is seen leaving for somewhere. She is upset with herself for letting Kim Hyun-soo go to the witness box, which distorted the whole case. Also, Kim Hyun-soo acts very unusual after returning from the trial. Shin Jung-han tries to comfort him, saying that even if he had not been there at the crime scene, the result would have been the same. Kim Hyun-soo says that, in his memory, Hong Guk-hwa's fingers were twitching, meaning that she was alive at that time and he should have saved her instead of running from the scene. But Shin Jung-han explains that it was Hong Guk was rigor mortis twitching, which happens in every dead body after some time. Her lungs were pierced by a knife, and she died on the spot. It was just her body's reflex after death. Later, fed up with everything, Kim Hyun-soo decides to live in prison to find an outlet for catharsis and seeks refuge with Do Ji-tae. Though the bullies still tease him, he tries not to pay much attention to them. One day, Park Do-sik steals the phone Kim Hyun-soo was gifted by Do Ji-tae. This makes Kim Hyun-soo angry, and he attacks Park Do-sik to get his phone back. This is the first time the young man is showing some courage, but he again gets beaten up and cannot get his phone back. Soon all the prisoners started avoiding him, and no one wanted to sit with him, even in the mess hall. His own cellmate was avoiding him, so Kim Hyun-soo goes to meet Do Ji-tae again and asks for his help. Do Ji-tae narrates his own story, where he was also falsely convicted and sent to prison to live for a lifetime. The circumstances in the prison converted him into this present personality, but he doesn't want the same for Kim Hyun-soo. He wants the young man to muster up some courage and start facing all the challenges bravely. That's the only way to survive in the prison. Do Ji-tae gives him a book to read and a cigarette to smoke. Also, Do Ji-tae will accompany him everywhere from now on. Kim Hyun-soo is taking up the style of his new friend, and he has also started strength training. After some days of hard practice, he is better mentally and physically. But one night when he calls at his home to talk to his sister, he hears that they are having a lot of trouble in their life due to him. Also, his sister asks him if he really didn't do this crime or they are just defending him falsely. This shatters the excitement of Kim Hyun-soo of talking to his family. Back inside the detention center, Park Do-sik again confronts Kim Hyun-soo and gives him a challenge, this time to meet him alone, as he wants a fair and square between the two. Do Ji-tae has a smile on his face seeing this, as he knows that Kim Hyun-soo is much stronger this time and he will defeat Park Do-sik. Kim Hyun-soo accepts the challenge and cuts his hair to change his look into a brutal one. He then goes to the location of the fight, where Park Do-sik is already waiting. Kim Hyun-soo turns the lights off and beats him a lot. In the end, he has a chance to kill his enemy, but he doesn't go to such extremes, which leaves him injured. Outside the detention center, Officer Park Sang-beom lets Lee Ja-hao leave the police station, thinking that he can't be the culprit they are searching for. This makes Shin Jung-han angry at the police department. The following day, Lee Ja-hao comes to court for his statement, and it comes out that he was following Hong Guk-hwa that night because he wanted to hire her for his illicit business. Though it's a crime, too, police did not interrogate him on this matter. However, he has no relation to the murder of Hong Guk-hwa. The wife of Shin Jung-han, Hong Jing-ya, also comes in the witness box during the final hearings of the case. She reveals the information she has verified while working on this case. The victim had 13 stab wounds, and the wounds were organized in a specific order. It is concluded that the perpetrator should be right-handed, while Kim Hyun-soo is left-handed, which is inconsistent with the crime scene. Also, the cut wound on the hand of Kim Hyun-soo was not due to the stabbing of the victim, but it was the result of the knife games. There were 8 items in the prop set, while the real number should be 9. Also, one knife was missing, which was present at the side table of the bed with fruits. This missing knife could be the murder weapon. 2. Hong Jing-ya argues that the police investigation is too biased, which makes the public jury reconsider the verdict. Prosecutor Tae-hee then comes up with the relationship between Hong Jing-ya and Shin Jung-han and asks why she is interested in the case. Hong Jing-ya tells the court that she has no feelings for Shin Jung-han anymore, and that's why she got a divorce from him. She is interested in the case because the other forensic officer did many wrong things and tried to mold the case just to make Kim Hyun-soo the culprit, which is wrong. If the officials are not finding enough evidence to support their stance on a case, then they should strive to find more evidence rather than molding the existing ones to prove an innocent person as the culprit. At the detention center, Kim Hyun-soo gets a tattoo from Do Ji-tae on his arm, which says that if there is a doubt, it should be considered as a way to prove one innocent. After that, Kim Hyun-soo asks Do Ji-tae if he really thinks he has not killed that girl. What if he really killed the girl and now is just acting to be innocent? Do Ji-tae replies that it doesn't matter to him if Kim Hyun-soo killed someone or not. The following day, in the detention center, Park Do-sik brings all the members of the White Tiger gang to take revenge on Kim Hyun-soo for beating him. They are going to cut one hand of Kim Hyun-soo, but Do Ji-tae comes there in time. He slaps Park Do-sik, saying that they both fought fairly and squarely. Now, he is unable to bear the disrespect of the defeat of a young boy. Saying this, he takes Kim Hyun-soo with him and leaves from there. Outside, he advises Kim Hyun-soo that he should be more careful of his back from now on, as thugs like Park Do-sik used to attack from the back. The following day at the trial, Shin Jun-han asks the victim's stepfather and learns about Hong Guk-hwa's insurance money, which was a lot. The stepfather applied for an insurance claim of up to 10 million on the same day of the death of Hong Guk-hwa. Also, the house is sold within 5 days of the incident, which can be an indication that the stepfather could be the one who killed Hong Guk-hwa for her money. But the stepfather also provides an alibi. At the time of the murder, Hong Guk-hwa's stepfather was with his girlfriend, so it eliminates all the charges against him. Then, they summoned the witness, Yoo Sun-hun, whose car had been hit that night. At that time, his home was 1 kilometer away from Hong Guk-hwa's residence, but he parked his car next to her house to rest. Shin Jung-han also reveals that Yoo Sun-hun appears in the CCTV footage near Hong Guk-hwa's house consistently for 2 or 3 days, even up to a week. Maybe he was planning for this murder. However, Yoo Sun-hun reveals that he was following Hong Guk-hwa's roommate Yoon Hyo-jong because he had a crush on her. Yoon Hyo-jong also confirms this, which means that Yoo Sun-hun is not a murderer. Now, the case is getting tougher and tougher for Shin Jung-han. So in the next trial, finally, he summoned the witness, Park Sang-beom. Shin Jung-han asks him, during the scene's filming, the inhaler of Kim Hyun-soo can be seen in the pictures, but it is not listed in the evidence list. There should be 9 items on the evidence list, but he only mentioned 8. The missing thing is the inhaler. Hearing this, Park Sang-beom admits to giving it to Kim Hyun-soo for use. Shin Jung-han believes that this is an illegal act deliberately induced by the team leader. It's an evidence forgery done by the police, which can indicate that they must have forged other things to set up Kim Hyun-soo in order to close the case quickly. Then, in the prosecution's final statement, they argue that many factors show Kim Hyun-soo's guilt, like he fled from the crime scene and did not call the police at critical moments. He had a sharp knife in his possession, and the victim's blood was on him all over the body. Prosecutor he demands the highest punishment, which is the death penalty for Kim Hyun-soo. She says that all the discussion of Shin Jung-han weighs nothing against the evidence that is pointing toward Kim Hyun-soo as the killer. On the final day of the hearing, Do Ji-tae gives a present to Kim Hyun-soo and hopes that he will never see Kim again in the detention center. At that day, Shin Jung-han is having some skin issues, which makes him irritated while preparing for the final comments on the case. In the court, Shin Jung-han tells the jury that he is under extreme stress and suffers from atopic dermatitis. He is also called a third-grade lawyer who always takes minor cases, having taken over 365 cases in a year, with 20 years of experience. Based on this vast experience, he argues that Kim Hyun-soo didn't commit the crime but made the mistake of driving a taxi and accepting drugs from a strange woman that day. The prosecution's case is based only on circumstantial evidence, and the weapon that directly harmed Hong Guk-hwa has not been found. Even Park Sang-beom, the investigator, thought Kim Hyun-soo was the suspect from the start, and molded the investigation towards his stance. But his words have no weight again against all the facts and evidence. In the end, the judge ruled that the suspicion of the crime outweighed the facts in favor of Kim, so he sentences Kim Hyun-soo to life imprisonment. Kim Hyun-soo again reaches the detention center and starts living his life. The prosecutor, Tae-hee, gets promoted, and Park Sang-beom gets his retirement with proper ceremonial greetings. In the detention center, Do Ji-tae is now thinking of Kim Hyun-soo to take over the things after him. They are now more than friends, but one day, when they both are sitting in the ground, Park Do-sik comes from behind and gives a cut on the neck of Do Ji-tae. Due to heavy blood loss, Do Ji-tae dies on the spot. He wanted to say something to Kim Hyun-soo at that time, but he could not succeed. The guards were also busy beating Park Do-sik instead of taking Do Ji-tae for medical support. Now, Kim Hyun-soo was again alone in the detention center, but according to the advice of Do Ji-tae, he has to survive there. On the other hand, Shin Jung-han is still worried about Kim Hyun-soo and is working on the case. One night, he discovers that Yoo Sun-hun's camera includes a secret photo, and by chance, he pulls it out from the police evidence box. The photo reveals that Hong Guk-hwa had been visiting Dr. Park Chan-yeol at the psychology clinic for the rehabilitation. After further investigation, it is confirmed that Park Chan-yeol is the real murderer. He and Hong Guk-hwa had been having an extramarital affair, and because Hong Guk-hwa wanted to break it off or tell his wife, he killed her out of resentment. Shin Jung-han takes all the evidence to Park Sang-beom and asks him to do something. Park Sang-beom is retired now, so he says that he can't do anything now, but Shin Jung-han leaves the evidence there, saying that he will have to do something, otherwise, the case will be reopened, and then Park Sang-beom would also be convicted guilty. So Park Sang-beom takes the evidence file to the prosecutor, and Tae-hee, and asks her to capture the real culprit this time and mend their mistake. In the end, the police cleared Kim Hyun-soo's name and acquitted him. After several days, Shin Jung-han visits Kim Hyun-soo in the detention center and tells him about the real culprit. But it looks like the life from within the soul of Kim Hyun-soo has been snatched away. He is alive but like a dead man in the outside world. This is due to the fact that the prosecutor wanted to close the case quickly for her promotion, and the team leader wanted to close the case quickly before his retirement. There was only Shin Jung-han who believed in Kim Hyun-soo's innocence,